Jai Hind and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi. As you can see, I have with me once again Lieutenant General Shokin Chauhan, who's going to tell us a little bit about why nobody wins long wars. Now, Ukraine war is kind of going to become the flavor of the season with a lot of action happening. Zelensky goes to USA, Putin goes to Belarus. A lot of things are happening, which, of course, need to be analyzed, need to be looked at. But till the time something concrete really doesn't come out from there, it's difficult to actually put a finger on what is happening. But, sir, thank you so much for joining in. And I, kind of actually, at a basic level, understand why no one wins long wars. I'd like you to kind of tell us a little more as to what the thought process is, sir.
Good afternoon, Adi. Nice to be on your show again. Uh, Certain interesting updates have happened about the Ukraine war, as you just said. Firstly, we've had Zelensky, who's in the US today. He was received by President Biden. And we had Putin visiting Belarus and meeting up with its president and speaking to people, the lawmakers of Belarus.
Yeah.
Now, what they discussed, of course, what they showed on television was totally different from what they probably discussed. But there are huge speculations about two issues: that would Putin's next offensive be from Belarus? Or is this just another feint? Is the issue, is there going to be another offensive? Similarly, the issues about both these trips, one thing is clear, that no one's in a hurry to end this war. That's it, and it's surprising because for all our experience, for all our ideas about long wars, nobody seems to be in a hurry to end this.
Mhm.
In November of this year, just a month back, General Mark Riley, who is the chairman of the U.S. Joint Chiefs
Joint
of Staff,
Chiefs.
he sent shockwaves through the Western capitals, the NATO capitals, when he declared that the war in Ukraine was unwinnable by purely military means. He also suggested that Ukraine was now in a position of strength and that this winter might be the moment to consider peace talks with Russia. And the analogy that he drew, which is what we are talking of long wars, was World War One,
Mhm.
when the adversaries, that means the, the Germans, the Austrians versus the Allied powers, their refusal to negotiate led to millions of additional deaths,
Yeah.
suggesting that the failure to seize the moment, Adi, will extend this war and millions more lives will be lost, especially considering the present day weapons of mass destruction available with both Russia and NATO. It's very funny because his remarks have challenged the position that Kiev holds. President Zelensky is, absolutely set on defeating Russia. And there is no way, in my mind, as I said in the last interview, that Russia can be defeated. Many of its Western backers, Poland, Baltics, North America, the United Kingdom, who seemingly have endorsed this Ukraine's pursuit of complete military victory, actually may be using General Miley as the cat's paw to say some things to Zelensky or to Ukraine or to the people of Ukraine, saying that, look, you can't win this war. Let's end it, but negotiate now. So that's what I think is happening. Interesting events are people using this to show they might, to show what might not be clear, or is it actually the truth? Yeah.
So I want to ask you something. You know, the US, as a matter of fact, somewhere around, I think, early November, started saying that, Ukraine must sit down on the negotiating table.
Yes.
The national security advisor had come in and they said, you need to. And Zelensky gave his demands to say that, till the time Putin does not hand over himself and his entire general staff for a war crime trial, does not get out of this and that and the other areas from Ukraine, there is going to be no negotiations. And he's basically stuck on to that entire thing. And as a matter of fact, last week he gave an interview where he said, if I meet Putin, I'll hit him. I'll sock him in the face, sort of a thing, is what he said. Now, this is where the problem is. Now, who does Russia negotiate with? After Mother Merkel or Angela Merkel's disaster, as far as the Minsk is concerned, has come out, even if the Russians want to negotiate, who do they negotiate with? Zelensky? It's impossible. Who do you think, as a figure, who would want to sit down with Russia, and who the Russians would also find as a credible ne- uh, partner to sit down and negotiate with, sir?
Okay, supposing you took Ukraine out of the picture in this.
Sir,
Ukraine can't fight this war without NATO. So, in essence, it's NATO's support that is allowing Ukraine to continue this dream for complete victory. The 10 points for peace, as Zelensky is given, and that have been endorsed by the Baltic republics. But if NATO says that, look, we're not going to fight anymore, or we're not going to support you anymore, Ukraine will fall that minute. So, frankly, by General Mark Miley's statement, what should be clear as a writing on the wall, because no one in any one of these advanced countries will speak out of turn. I feel that Zelensky has been asked to go to the US to be given some plain truths that, look, while I can keep saying that I will support you, in reality, I think the game is up. You negotiate, accept certain losses of territory, accept that Crimea will not be yours, and start from there. This dream about getting Putin or getting the entire general staff and declaring them war criminals can only come through complete victory, and it's not possible in the short period of time. And I don't think we can go forward with this.
was it
That's the
ever possible, sir?
no, Adi. I've been saying again and again and again, complete victory over Russia is impossible.
So,
Look at
which
what's
brings
going to
me,
happen. It's only
um,
December. There is
yeah,
January, February, March, and April of winter to come. The fighters in Ukraine, you can imagine the psychological issue mind of the fighters in Ukraine. There is no power today. They can keep saying that power has been restored in Kiev, but there's no power in the rest of Ukraine. With that kind of winter and no power, no heating, how do you think this fighter will fight knowing that his family has no access to power and no access to medical help? I think it's very, very difficult, Adi. Uh, I don't think it's possible, frankly. And I think that Zelensky has been called to the US to be told these home truths and to start the process of negotiation. And who will Putin negotiate with? Putin will negotiate only with the US. I don't think he's ever going to negotiate with Zelensky.
sir. Which actually brings me to an interesting question, sir. Now, there was a chance at peace in somewhere end of February when these negotiations in Istanbul happened. The first meeting in Minsk, and then Zelensky said, "I don't want to go to Minsk. You guys attacked me," and that whole crybaby thing happened. They said, "Okay, we'll sit down in Istanbul." They sat down. Zelensky was just about to sign up, and he had announced, "I can live with neutrality. We can." He didn't say anything about Crimea, so that said very clearly that Crimea is off the table. He didn't say it, but one could make that out. He also said we could talk about the two provinces, Donbass, the Donetsk and the Luhansk and stuff like that. So he was there. And then Boris Johnson flies in and ruins everything. Which is my question. If an understanding, and I'm sure, sir, you're a general, there are, uh, what you're saying is not something which is so greatly unknown or anything like that that you can't beat Russia. It's such a large country. I'm sure there were generals in the US and the UK who knew the same thing. Why did they not advise their government that this is an unwinnable war? Let's not do this.
Okay. From February to December of 2022, Russia has gone through a few crises. Started the general mobilization. There have been some military defeats, tactical military defeats, but defeats all the same. There is a general understanding that the Russian army has beaten. So the US generals, not saying anything at that moment, they got 10 months to have reduced Russia a little bit. Russia may have played into their hands,
Yeah,
but now is the time of crisis. And if the American Joint Chiefs has said this, I would take him very seriously.
absolutely. Absolutely, sir. There's no question. The main thing which I'd like to draw your attention to, sir, with regards to closing this particular war, let's say even today, the Russians can stand up and say, okay, we won, we've got our areas, we want you to vacate Donbass, which is another 50, 100 kilometers. I'm sure they can roll it up shortly. We won, we stand down. Ceasefire, let's talk. That won't happen. We know that. Which brings me to the main important point, sir. After so much blood has lost on both sides, I mean, I'm not wanting to get into the figures because both the figures are all mired, but the blood has been spilled on the battlefield. A cost has been paid by Russian businesses, by Russian people. Ukrainians, I can't even say because they're in such a pathetic condition. If I was a Ukrainian, I'd rather go and live in Afghanistan today. At least there are no bombs falling all over my head, and whatever light is there, I know it's going to come on a certain time and go. I don't have that. How do you think both the populations would agree to something like this? Because of the loss of blood, because of the loss of a whole lot of other things, if there is a premature peace, and it's a paradox at a statement itself, premature peace, won't it lead into another?
Populations agree when they are told the truth. The Russian population, I am certain, they have not chided or gone against Putin in any way.
Nope. Mhm.
So they are still on the issue that they have won or are winning. Because in reality, well, Russia may have lost 5 to 10,000 troops, but largely the country's prestige has been kept kept up. The economy is doing well. There is no problem at all. The markets are open in Moscow or all other cities. The population is largely untouched. The electricity has not been taken away. Nothing. And if Putin is to bring a premature end to this war, saying that I have achieved my aims, which is what he said in October, if you remember, that I have achieved my aims, that these were my aims for the special operation, and that's it. We can now have a ceasefire. The issue was at that time to give Zelensky a fleeting branch to have caught. And
Yeah.
for that time, the NATO telling him that, look, now that's it, stop it. We can't support you anymore. I am absolutely clear, Adi, that they can't support Ukraine beyond this.
Mhm.
And when you talk of popular support to Ukraine, there is none in the countries, none at all.
How do you look at a certain news that came out of Poland, sir, recently, which talked about 200,000 troops being mobilized? And President Duda himself didn't, but the rumor has it they want them to be ready by about April, May 2023. Of course, Poland, I think, has been one of the most vocal critics of vocal anti-Russia powers in the NATO itself. The issue is, which is about this whole rhetoric, which doesn't seem to be dying down, sir. Mark Milley came out, and as you very rightly said, he said this.
Miley.
Miley, yeah, he would have, I'm sure, got a little bit of a rap from the Democratic Party. Shut up, what are you doing? But he said
No,
what he
no.
said, and I
I
think
think he has spoken after discussing with President Biden. I don't think got any rap by anybody. No general speaks out of turn.
fair enough. So that
Absolutely.
tells you a lot. So you got
And
mixed
not the
messaging,
Joint
and
Chiefs of
that's
Staff.
how do you look at the Polish kind of mobilizing, and this on the contrary, where the general is saying Ukraine can't win.
What is what is foolish in this issue is that Poland can't enter this war unless it sparks a war against NATO. 200,000 troops is nothing compared to the power that Russia has.
Hmm.
Because if Russia threatened, the mainland is threatened, she will use her devastating nuclear weapons. There's just no doubt about it. I think Poland is against stupidly trying to, create a situation from which NATO might be forced to once again protect them. But I don't think the US and its partners have any such plan. The chances for General Miley's scenario will grow. A war of attrition, the danger of escalation, and catastrophe, and a troubled aftermath to the war. It's a very difficult situation. I feel that although the Russians lack the broad and deep support that Ukraine has received from its partners and allies, the Russians are much stronger than what anyone could have predicted.
Yeah.
Its army, its economy, the leaders all seem stable, though the Russian military might be in part rather, dispirited by the recent, repeated tactical defeats. It will survive and it will thrive. The coming winter will be crucial for the Russian army's ability to endure, and no military expert, including me, can ever predict its collapse. There's no question. So I think they should now seize the moment, accept Jen Miley's statement, and go forward from there. I don't see anything happening to the Russians military, to their economy, to their people, to their government. I don't think anything will change.
So you said something very interesting in the middle. The idea was to weaken Russia, and that's something that was elucidated to very clearly by Lloyd Austin, the former general and the current defense secretary of US. He had said, we need to weaken Russia so that it doesn't do something like this again. Today, right now, you're saying that the Russian economy is stronger, their army is getting stronger. General Shoigu yesterday puts out a statement that the Russian army will be increased to 1.5 million
Million.
men, and their defense budget has now gone up to $122 billion. Has the West actually achieved anything out of this, sir?
It's a funny situation. What the West has achieved, it has taught Russia that there are limits to its power and to the power that Russia can use.
Indeed.
That's
Yeah.
that's what it's taught Russia. Uh, if you remember the Russian campaign, even in
Georgia,
Chechnya,
Chechnya.
Chechnya
Hmm.
was also a disaster in the beginning, till they decided to wipe out Chechnya using firepower.
That was
Russia
Putin again.
kind of firepower. They
Yeah.
have that kind of firepower, and Ukraine should not doubt the Russian ability to use more and more and more firepower as the time comes. This devastation can still be repaired but not devastation in the next 5 years. Russia is not Germany of 1940s. This is not the 1940s either. It's not a world war. It's a war. The Russians are doing well. They're not escalating very in a large manner. If you notice, they're concentrating in small places, waiting, biding their time, threatening an offensive, but definitely not a winter offensive. Looking at early spring, if it at all you are to move troops. Ukraine's capital is within 90 kilometers of the border of
Yeah.
Belarus. So I feel the next year might see Ukraine further divided, and they might just be pushed. Zelensky government might just be pushed across the Dnieper River into Poland's hands.
And Poland will be sitting there with a catching glove. Aja.
Absolutely. That's what I fear, because if you look at that map, Adi, and I keep looking at that map again and again and again, you look at the map in the north, there's no question of Russia being attacked from the north. It's the Arctic cap, the ice, the snow, the cold. So she's absolutely safe from the north. There's no question of anything coming there. In the east is a story that we need to see. So I would be very careful before making these kind of statements. Uh, by Poland doing what they're doing, all Ukraine is doing is they're hastening their own breakup. And I would be, if they continue this war for the next 2 years, I would look at the balkanization of Ukraine, much less the balkanization of Russia.
Balkanization of Russia. I mean, that's like the most amazing term that has come out of this war. I mean, it's amazing. So they want to break up a country that has been there together for almost 400 years, and
They
been
can't. It's
one of
too
the
strong.
strongest powers in the world. I mean,
Too strong. Absolutely.
yeah. So, there's another conundrum that I want to ask you about. The last time you mentioned, does Russia actually need to have an offensive? They're getting these troops. They might just thoda bahut chalte raho aage, idhar udhar, keep pushing it. And you said very clearly that the Russians are not in a hurry. I read about it and I realized they aren't. Economy is doing well. Diplomatically, they're good. Oil is being sold. Gas is being sold. Europe is buying more gas, by the way. They've ordered it for 2023. I mean, they're talking about oil price caps and they're ordering oil. La bhai, chalega.
Mm.
So it doesn't hurt the Russians in any way. They're earning more money that they have spent in this war. You
Absolutely.
can keep sanctioning and you can keep doing all this. Why does he need to go in an offensive? One, he's going to rotate all his troops, make sure all his troops are battle hardened. If I was anybody in the Russian army, I would say, yaar, ghumate raho. Let everybody get a time in the front.
Yeah, giving them battle inoculation. I
It's
agree.
fantastic. I mean, Indian army does that by sending people into Kashmir and the northeast. You're giving them the taste of the gunpowder.
No,
You
we
have an
don't do it
opportunity, sir.
because we wanted to continue. We
Yeah,
do it
but
because we want to save this in an internal situation. This
absolutely,
is not
that
an
is the main goal, sir. But you're
internal
also
battle.
able to, yeah, you're also able to achieve a certain objective of training your troops.
Exactly. So, but see, Adi, this is what I said in my last talk with you. That why are you looking for offenses when it need not happen at all? But
I,
at the same time, by threatening this offensive from the east, it will make sure that Ukraine cannot move its troops from there. You will have to have a sizable amount of troops always in the eastern part of Ukraine uh, to to at least try and stall anything coming from Belarus. So when you've got a country and you can come through in from two sides, and both sides are fairly easy going, not difficult terrain.
Yeah.
no major obstacles, and you can roll them up to the Dnieper River. Right, it's a tough task. Somebody should tell Zelensky to make him sit down in front with a map and say, "Look, these are the two or four or five or eight pincers that can come. There are no major capabilities that the Ukrainian army has to stop them.
Oh,
Uh, you have nothing in the kitty. Russia has everything in the kitty. So it's time you sort of negotiate it. We need to get back to normal life."
President Biden is known for his gaffes. He made one today, and he said, "We will support Ukraine till the time
Yes,
there is Ukraine."
I read that, but in international relations, this is merely talk. I feel President Zelensky will be read out the
Right.
riot order by General Miley. He'll be briefed definitely in the Pentagon, and he will be told very clearly that this war and what the Russians might be planning is unsustainable for Ukraine.
My last question to you, sir. President Zelensky has a he's attained a certain figuredom, and I'd like to invent this new word in the world. He's I this is how I look at it. So I may be horribly wrong. Please correct me. I look at him as the cheerleader for the war. He's there everywhere in his green T-shirt, talking this, that, and the other. Something one must appreciate. Huh? Everybody says he's doing nothing and stuff like that. It takes a lot of effort to do what he's doing. I mean, he's not a fighter. He's a comedian. He's a media guy, and he's doing what he does best. And he's kind of putting that skill to work, which is good. But he is under a certain amount of threat, and that's what a lot of people have started saying, that he cannot negotiate anymore, because there are people in Kiev that will, as they say in the Eastern European region, that you will get a 75 at the back of your head. Is there a compulsion today for President Zelensky to continue this? And if there is someone in the Ukrainian structure that you would find who could sit down with the Russians, why I say this is because President, the General Zelensky gave an interview, and he's the only guy that has actually spoken to Russia during this war.
Hmm.
Is there something moving to kind of get him out in a certain polite way so that somebody else can come in and stop this?
I think it's difficult. It's very difficult because this now belongs to the realm of information, inside information, which I
Yeah,
don't think you and me have. We have to be focused on the OSINT, the available intelligence outside.
indeed, sir.
I have no intelligence about Zelensky or anybody trying to make peace with Russia behind Zelensky's back. But people must be talking. I mean, how long can a country survive like this?
That's my question, sir.
So I feel that there has to be some kind of coherence, and the whole thing actually spelled out was from General Miley's article and speech. I said, here is a voice that has been told by the U.S. government to say that militarily this is not possible anymore. And I don't know. I could be wrong. He may have just shot his mouth off. But generally, the Joint Chief of the Staff shooting his mouth off is not
Bit outlandish.
mm, is not accepted. I feel, and after that, Zelensky has been brought to the U.S. I feel there'll be some plain talking.
Sir, I've covered this war right from day one, because as a
Yes, we've been
enthusiast,
covering it from then. We're covering
yeah,
it from
as an enthusiast, for me, it was an opportunity to actually see a combined arms battle. Because what I've seen till now is counter-terrorist operations within India, counter-terrorist
yeah.
insurgent operations within Afghanistan, Iraq. Iraq, of course, was a all-out this thing. But I'm going to ask you to just close this discussion with a small comment about the factor that here are two people or two countries. I mean, they literally, if you dig a Russian, you'll get a Ukrainian, and if you dig a Ukrainian, you'll get a Russian inside.
Hmm.
they have these tendencies, and they've been at it with regards these fighting. Even during the Soviet Union, there used to be a lot of tension, and that's one of the reasons why Khrushchev said, "Take Crimea, just shut up, just keep it with you." He gave them as a gift because there was a lot of resistance coming to him from that
Yeah.
particular region. How do you see a forward path? Let's say there's no invasion. Your what you're saying is exactly what happens. What kind of a Ukraine will you be left with by the end of this? And I'd like you to close this discussion with that, sir. Your perception on what do you think will be left of Ukraine?
I think a fractured Ukraine, there's no doubt about that. For the moment, geopolitics is actually based on reality, study of reality, and study of the ground, and study of history, and study of culture, and study of processes. Uh, Ukraine restarted its life as Ukraine only after 1938. Before that, she didn't exist. One half with Poland, the other half with Russia. And
Romania
it's
and
only because she was a part of the USSR that Ukraine became whole again. There are very sizable southern and eastern parts which are of Russian descent. So, what kind of Ukraine do I see after the war is a difficult question, because if they continue with this war, then I don't think that they will be able to hold on to their half of the Dnieper River. I feel they'll be rolled up behind that eventually. Zelensky and the rest of his friends.
pains
So
me to hear those words, sir. Honestly, I mean, they're people at the end of it. Yes, they've got this weird little ideology stuck in their head, but they're people. And what I see of Ukraine today is the Germany of late 1944, early 1945, where they know they're down, but they can't just say we're down. Let's stop, because it's gonna require a lot of political and personal capital to do that. You won't be able to survive after that.
someone has to be realistic to put to
Yeah, yeah.
Zelensky.
It's a sad state of affairs, sir. Uh, they're sending these Patriot missiles and 120 missiles. I wonder what it's going to protect. Probably the presidential palace. Nothing more than that. It's able to. But it pains me to see what's happening. But as an analyst, it also is very. I'm very enthusiastic to actually see this war to a conclusion, because one would actually get to know the new things. Uh, the Russians have put out some very new weapons and stuff like that. And you and I have discussed about drones extensively. You busted the myth of the TB2, which I got a lot of flack from Turkey, I must say, sir.
Yeah,
A lot of yeah, yeah.
but they've realized they don't function anymore with this word
They
in
gone.
this battlefield. They realize that.
Yeah. The Lancet is doing decently well with what videos we see. We don't know how many of them are failing,
Yeah,
right? The Shaheeds are doing decently well, but we don't know how many of them are failing. But for the cost and comparative ratio, Shahid seems like a perfect, attack sort of a thing. But what we see out of this war today is a completely changing warfare scenario that we need to learn from people like you, and who've been taking us through this war. So thank you so much. This has been a fantastic show. I think we've not covered anything in specific, sir. We've covered the overall broad horizon of this war, where we are trying to just have a heart to heart conversation with regards to, let's end this damn thing. I mean,
yeah.
sorry for the swear word, but that's what I feel, sir, and that's what I take from this discussion. And as always, it's a pleasure talking to you, and it's always fun and enjoyable, and of course, it's always an intriguing conversation, sir. Till next time, and let's hope something more happens, so that I can connect with you once again for an update on Ukraine.
Thank you, Andy.
Till
Thank
then,
you.
sir. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind. Thank you.